The bomb maker had his workshop in Manshia Nassa, a vast slum that was home to almost 500,000 people. The locals called it Garbage City because the men and women who made their home there collected trash from the rest of Cairo and brought it back to be sorted in the hope that they might find pieces to resell. Children rifled through the garbage all day. Tens of thousands of people were crammed into rooms that were too small for them, in housing blocks that were in dire need of repair. It was a dour, joyless existence. Ezbet Bechit was a typical neighbourhood of Garbage City. Families survived on less than $50 a month. Cooking and hygiene facilities were lacking. There was no electricity and very little drinkable water. It was a desperate place, poverty pressing down on it with a heavy hand, but somehow its loud and hectic spirit remained undaunted. It was an excellent place to hide if you wanted to build bombs. Life in the slum was difficult enough, but it had been made even more trying over the course of the last 12 hours as a sandstorm had blown in from the desert. Visibility had been reduced to 20 or 30 yards, and the air was difficult to breathe. A thick film of sand had been deposited across everything, and the sun's rays had been weakened to a sickly yellow glow. The bomb maker's name was Ahmed, and he had made an excellent reputation for himself as one of Hamas's most skilled technicians. He supplied the ordnance for the Izz ad-Din al-Qassam brigades, the military wing of the organisation that had as its aim the destruction of the Israeli state. His nickname was Al-Muhandis, which translated as the mechanic. Shin Bet, Israel's internal security unit, had estimated that the mechanic's bombs were responsible for the deaths of over 300 Israeli soldiers and civilians. He was a high-ranking target, and when a defector had betrayed his location, the Mossad had dispatched 2 of its most dangerous operatives to eliminate him. The agents on the ground were Avi Bachman and Uri Naim. They were assassins. They were not tasked with negotiating with Ahmed. They were not interested in capturing him, not even for the information they would have been able to extract during an interrogation. They were in Cairo to kill him, to make an example of him that would demonstrate once again that Israel did not consider international boundaries an impediment to the protection of its citizens, nor a shield to guard against its wrath. Bachman was a man of normal height and stature, the sort of man who would be able to blend into most environments without drawing attention to himself. He was wearing a traditional Egyptian galibaya, a loose robe that reached down to his ankles. He wore a long kaftan over the robe, a keffiyeh on his head, and a light checkered scarf that was drawn up to cover his mouth and nose to protect them from the blowing sand. Bachman had welcomed the storm. It was a tremendous stroke of good fortune for them, providing the perfect excuse for them to obscure their identities. It also meant that the locals would be too busy suffering this latest privation to be particularly vigilant. And, more important yet, as far as Bachman was concerned, it would make it more difficult for the Mossad to confirm exactly what was about to happen. There would be an assassination, but it was not the murder that they had planned in Tel Aviv. Bachman's partner, Naim, was dressed similarly to him. They were sitting in the front seats of a Nissan that they had purchased from a dealer in Bab al-Luch. It was ancient and showing its age without grace. There were scratches and dents across its bodywork. The glass in the offside window had been shattered, and the resulting hole had been covered over with a plastic bag that had been taped to the frame. The rear fender was tied on with pieces of wire. The car looked normal here, no better or worse than the other vehicles that struggled up and down the sandy street. They were parked behind a red Chevrolet flatbed truck that was overloaded with trash. Children had scurried up into the load bed to start filtering it, separating the items that they could sell from those that had no value. But now the storm had forced them inside. There were large sacks of refuse and bales of recycled paper stacked up in the gutters. A few other locals were around, but most people were sheltering from the wind and the sand.